Around the world, some 4,000 to up to 12,000 years ago, something truly radical started to happen. People started to domesticate crops and livestock as well. That meant that wild plants and wild animals started to become domesticated or cultivated, as we call them with plants. That didn't happen just in one place. It happened in many, many places. In fact, by some accounts, we have up to maybe 80 or 100 places around the world where people started to domesticate these plants and animals. Now, some of those places were richer or had more plants and more animals domesticated in the same general region. And so researchers who started to understand diversity in crops and in livestock started to realize that there were special regions, hotspots, centers of diversity, with many, many plants and many animals that were domesticated by the ancient cultures in those places. Those places were originally called by Nikolai Vavilov centers of diversity or centers of origin of crops. We started to realize since then that they weren't very easy to highlight an exact center of, and so we started to call them regions of diversity or regions of origin. And that's a bit of a wider concept so that we don't have to argue about exactly in what country, exactly in what place a particular crop was domesticated or not. Because this was quite a long time ago, and frankly, we don't know the exact place on the map. So as we come to the present time, all cultures around the world are eating foods, plants and animals that were originally domesticated somewhere else, that came from many, many miles away. And we are all really beneficiaries or recipients of global gifts of ancient cultures, of crops that come from the Americas, from Asia, from Africa, from Europe, etc., etc. The US diet, for instance, is far from a native diet. In fact, at most, maybe 1 or 2% of our diet really comes from North America in its origins. That doesn't mean we don't grow those foods here. In fact, we grow a lot of our food here in the United States that we consume. But the origins of those crops are most important crops like wheat that comes from the Fertile Crescent in West Asia, or alfalfa that also comes from that region in Central Asia, or corn, maize that comes from Mexico and Central America and in South America. These crops are not ours of origin, but they've come in the last couple hundred years and become incredibly important to us and to our culture. In the present day, even though we are all beneficiaries of these crops, much has changed around the world, much continues to change, and the centers of origin, or regions of diversity of these crops, continue to change as well. Folks are no longer growing their traditional crops. They might be moving into new opportunities in agriculture or no longer growing food at all. Economic development has made urban areas develop out and take over agricultural regions. Folks need resources. They log out forests. Suffice to say that the regions of origin of crops, even though they are considered incredibly rich in terms of diversity, ancient diversity of crops, they are in many cases losing that diversity, especially in the last 100 or 200 years. This is why much conservation emphasis or effort is going into looking at what diversity still exists in these original regions of diversity of crops. For instance, in the Andean mountains of South America for potatoes, and trying to understand, can we protect or conserve this diversity, both in gene banks or seed banks where they can be preserved for the long term and available for crop breeding, and also with in situ conservation, that is working with farmers in their communities to preserve the varieties that they wish to for the global community.